Welcome to the Catapult Effect, a podcast where professionals like you turn challenges into opportunities for extraordinary growth. If you're tired of struggling, feeling lost, and ready to catapult yourself into the best version of you, then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Katie Wrigley.
Welcome back to the Catapult Effect podcast. I am your host, Katie Wrigley. So my coach, Travis Greenlee, who has a podcast called The Lifestyle Business Quest, did an episode this week about the fact that we're in a trust recession. And he's right. When you look at it, there is so much mistrust out there, and it's so understandable how we got this way. We have fake news that's very difficult to differentiate from real news. We've had conflicting messages, conflicting data coming from the government, coming from other sources. It's no wonder that we're starting to get into analysis paralysis, and it's really unclear who we can trust. And Travis brings up a lot of really good points that those of us who are business owners and entrepreneurs, we can follow a certain model to help to show people that we are trustable. And there are specific outlines and guidance that he gives in this episode, and I'm going to link to it in the show notes, to help you be able to establish trust. And it got me thinking. It's something that Brene Brown first brought my attention to in one of her books. I couldn't tell you which one, but I'm a huge fan of hers. And one of the things that she talked about is that you are going to be limited in your ability to love other people by how much you love yourself. And there is no getting away around that. You can tell yourself that you love others more than you love yourself, but you are limited in the love that you can give them if you do not love yourself. Her data is absolutely indisputable. And no matter how much I wanted to deny it for myself, she's right. And I also realized the same things apply for respect and trust. If you don't know how to trust yourself or respect yourself, or you have a lack of trust or respect for yourself, how are you going to know trustable characteristics and traits to look for in other people? If you have no guidepost, how are you going to find your way? And so I wanted to dedicate this episode today to really talking about ways that you can start to establish trust with yourself and extend these same practices into others that you're interacting with and potentially looking at to be able to tell, can I trust them or not? Because especially in the business world, there have been so many programs that have let people down. I have been through that myself. There's always something I take from anything that I invest in, but I have been hugely disappointed with some of my last investments. And when I look back to those times when I made those decisions, I wasn't trusting myself. I have spent a lot of time and effort and energy on building my own self-trust now. And I am making much better decisions as a result. And it is not that hard to do. So there are a few things that you can start to do to help yourself build that trust within yourself. If you have a journal, I highly recommend that you grab it. If you don't, this is a great time to potentially start to journal. So I want you to go back and look first at where have you showed up for yourself in life? And just start with like the last 5 years. What have you done for yourself? And I mean everything. Getting yourself to the doctor when you're sick, even if you hate doctors. And places and times that you've shown up, big projects that you may have worked through at work or in your business. List every place where you have shown up for yourself, and you can go back and say, hey, I know when this happens, I'm going to show up for myself. I'm going to be there. One of the easiest and fastest ways to establish trust with yourself is when you say you're going to do something, do it. I don't care how trivial it may seem. I don't care how minute or insignificant you may think it is. How you do one thing is how you are going to do everything. And think about that statement. Like, who here knows someone that just phones things in their life? Like, they never really go balls to the wall. They're always kind of half-assing it. I definitely know people like that. That's how they do everything. If you look at them, and there's someone I'm thinking of, I'm not going to call them out, but there's someone I'm thinking of from my past who phoned in everything within our relationship, like after the initial effort, of course. And then everything was just phoned in. And when I looked at their life as a whole, I shouldn't have been surprised. because how they worked with me and interacted with me is how they did everything. They phoned it in at work. They phoned it in with their family. They would do the minimal effort to be like, okay, I'm here. I showed up. I love you. But they would never go deeper. They phoned in everything. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you say, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, go to the gym. I don't care how little you don't want to. If you are trying to establish trust with yourself, it is important that you follow through with what you say you are going to do. Start small. Do not try to establish trust by saying, I'm going to go to the gym 7 times this week, especially if you haven't been going to the gym at all. That's way too big of a goal to put on yourself right out of the gate. It doesn't mean that you won't be there in a couple weeks or a couple months, but start slow to establish trust. So if one of your goals is, I want to start working out more, you're going to go to the gym maybe 1 time this week, or maybe you're going to take a walk or do something. But whatever it is you choose, however many times you say you're going to do, follow through and do that thing that you said you were going to do. Again, it doesn't matter how trivial. And don't commit to it. And be really clear with your language if you're not going to commit. So it looks like with language, I am going to do XYZ this week and then do XYZ. If you aren't sure you can commit, if time permits, I will also. So you aren't committing to it that way. And it doesn't have to be if time permits, but I may do this. Maybe I think like I want to do that. But don't commit unless you are 100% sure you're going to follow through. Again, this is about building trust in yourself right now, because you can't start to trust anybody else unless you start to trust yourself. This is also a good point of those coaches, those other leaders that you're following out there. When they say they're going to do something, do they do it? What is their follow through rate? Are they promising things that don't come up very often? Are they making a lot of promises that you never hear? Are you seeing the proof behind their statements? Like I had someone reach out to me a little while ago on LinkedIn, and I immediately didn't trust because it just sounded too good to be true. As someone who works with coaches and helps get however many calls a week or something. And so he sends me screenshots of the platform. And as I'm looking at it, the stats look great. But if you look closer, the stats they were proud of were a decline from the prior month. Why? If you're suggesting this system and using those stats, and it's a 30, and it was like a 30 some odd % decline from the month before, makes you wonder, can you really trust him? I didn't feel I could. Social proof is a big thing. You can find this within your own life. That's why the first thing I started in this episode is go back, look at places where you've shown up for yourself, where you have shown that you can be trusted. Whatever you say you're going to do it. And don't commit unless you are 100% sure you're going to be able to show up and do it. The next thing I want you to notice is who is following through with what they say they're going to do. And to what degree. People aren't going to be perfect, but you want someone who, if they say they're going to do something, you see them do it at some point, or at least they're in the high 90th percentile of following through with what they say they're going to do. You also need to be honest. I think that goes without saying. And that also includes honesty with ourselves, looking at ourselves and being honest with, to what degree can I trust myself here? So there is one place where I'm really trying to establish more trust in myself. So I cannot be trusted fully to stay off of my device during the hours that I said that I'm going to put it down. This is something that I'm actively working on right now. And I have very clear boundaries that I am not fully adhering to. And I'm pointing this out because if I continue this behavior, it is going to dent the trust I have in myself. And for those of you who are business owners listening, as you're putting out these tools and doing these things that Travis recommends in his episode, you want to make sure you trust yourself, because if you don't think the stuff you're putting out there is any good, that's going to come through in your messaging, and people are going to pick this up and be like, hey, I'm picking up some hesitancy there. Like, Does this person trust themselves? Can I trust them? If they don't trust themselves, why should I trust them? It becomes a thing, a really big thing. So you want to make sure, again, follow through rate is good, and that you're seeing things that are consistent and very clear over time, and starting to use these practices both within your own life and within others. And since we are humans, we're gonna screw up at some point. Just know that that's gonna happen. You're gonna let yourself down. You're gonna let someone else down. That's gonna happen. Just know it. And what are you gonna do in that case? So when you have broken trust in someone, you're gonna need to double or triple down for a while to make up for that. So there's something else that Brene talks about with, I believe it's the trust jar, and putting marbles in the trust jar. I think it's her. I may be mixing up leaders out there. But when someone follows through with something they say they're going to do, or they show up for you, they get a marble in the trust jar. But when someone betrays you, it's not just one marble that comes out. It's like a whole handful. So you dented that trust, because prior to that, you hadn't given them any reason not to trust you. Now you have. So that means you're going to need to double down with your communication, with your action, with your patience, and not insist on them reestablishing the trust until they're ready. You're going to need to earn that back. And the same thing with yourself. When you don't follow through for yourself, you're going to need to do something to come back and reestablish, reemphasize that trust in yourself. So if you do listen to Travis's episode, he gives really great tools, like I said, to be able to implement it. And I wanted to try to give you the ability to look at what is blocking you within yourself that is bleeding into this inability to be able to trust other people. So I am trusting that this episode was helpful for you. I actually kept it to a short episode. My guests and I have been having wonderful conversations, but so far, I had not stuck to the short episodes that I promised. So here I am, first short episode in season 3, just like I promised. And I am going to try to do a better job with my guests to rein them in and get them more succinct. However, the messaging and the conversations have been so great that I haven't wanted to go back and edit and cut it down for it to be shorter. But that was a promise I made to you guys, and I haven't fulfilled it yet until this episode. I will be back again next week. Until then, please be well, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and leave a 5-star review, which helps grow the podcast and reach others just like you. While you're at it, connect with Katie on social media. You can find her on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram as @CoachKTDubs. That's CoachKTDubs. This has been the Catapult Effect with Katie Wrigley. Thanks for listening.